Blog Talk Radio.
Good morning, everyone. This is Laurie Smith on Blog Talk Radio. It is 6 o'clock here in the morning, Calgary, Alberta, Friday morning, October the 15th, and I'm happy to be here. This is One Child Abuse Survivor to another 30 minutes live internet streaming radio broadcast from blogtalkradio.com. And chat room is open if anybody's awake and wants to sit in there. I'm just drinking coffee and waking up here and want to continue looking at angerresources.com. And there's so much good information on there. This is just really helping me out, especially right now because I am dealing with some anger issues. So, and I always have been. So I find this information very helpful. I hope it helps other people too. www.angerresources.com, ANGEROURCES.com. And so, I'm not a professional counselor or therapist or anything like that. I'm just a private citizen paying to do my shows. So you have to listen at your own discretion. Topics of abuse can be very sensitive, and you have to know what's good for you to listen to. It's really important, especially if you're a survivor and you're just starting your healing journey. Things can really trigger people. I know this is firsthand. So you want to make sure you're in a safe enough place when you listen to my shows, because I'm talking a lot about my own survivor issues and things like that. And the topics of abuse just are very sensitive. So you have to listen at your own discretion. And if you're a young person under the age of 18, please have someone, like an adult, listen to the show with you, just to okay it, that you can listen to it. I have no idea how young the people are who are listening to my shows, and I just think young people should keep themselves safe at all times. That's what I'm doing. I'm the Canada Regional Director for Dreamcatchers for Abused Children, out here trying to protect children and protect children's rights, really standing up for child rights and doing everything that we can as volunteers for Dreamcatchers for Abused Children to help save children's lives, along with everybody else out here who's trying to do the same thing. So make sure that you keep yourself safe, and when you're listening to stuff online that it seems to be adult-oriented, make sure that you have an adult okay it, that you can listen to it. And it's just a good idea, because then if you have questions, they can help you find some answers, hopefully. And then, just to keep a check on what you're doing online, because so many children fall victim every day to child sexual predators and pedophiles and whatnot. And the FBI has a great website out there on how to keep yourself safe on internet safety. If you just go to FBI.gov, type in internet safety, FBI.gov, it'll bring up their information. And I really like that website. They really do a good job to explain how to keep yourself safe online and the importance of it, the reason why. Because at any given time, there's just hundreds of thousands of child sexual predators and pedophiles and whatnot online in chat rooms and whatnot trying to get a hold of children. So you have to keep yourself safe, and you have to know how to keep yourself safe so that you don't become a victim of a child sexual predator or a pedophile, right? It's so important. You do not want that. And if you're a parent, you want to learn how to keep your children safe and how to keep your family safe as well when they're online. So there's all kinds of good information out there, so make sure that you access that information if you have a computer and you can get a hold of it, or just go to your library and find it and get it there. So, I want to take another look here at angerresources.com, and there's another portion of this website, the next sort of article that I want to go to, which is by Dave Decker, Some Distortions and Perversions of Anger, What Anger the Emotion Isn't, and that's the next portion of this. And that's from www.angerresources.com/distortions.htm. And the information is put out by Dave Decker and Michael Obsatz, and they're both work in the field of anger management, and they're both psychiatrists working in the, to help counselors, maybe they're therapists or something. But you can check out their About Us column. They have like little sections on their website, and that we already went over that. They're doing some great work here, and I think what they've written is very, helpful for anyone who may be experiencing anger management issues, which most people at any given time can be experiencing anger problems, right, with road rage or standing in lines, waiting forever and ever, and you just life today is, for most people who live in large cities or even small cities, doesn't matter. Life is pretty stressful, and we're all running, doing too much and having too much thrown at us all day, and so it can build up, and you can end up having all these anger management problems. And mine stem from my child abuse, and that's the whole issue, right? For survivors of child abuse, a lot of times these anger issues go way back, right? So he does have some good information on here about the shame-rage connection and whatnot, which we already went through on my shows. So you can check that out as well. I thought that was so interesting. It really was helpful for me as a survivor to see that, because I didn't understand the whole issue surrounding shame. And I thought shame was more like an action or something, like, that was like shaming behavior or something like that. I didn't realize it would be something that I'd be carrying with me. So I'm so glad that I realized that the shame does not belong to me. It belongs to the abusers. And, the rage that was left over because of it, I'm learning how I'm in such a better place now because I've learned how to direct it in a positive manner instead of a negative manner. So that's the thing. We have to learn how to do this stuff if we have problems with anger management, right? Excuse me. Some distortions and perversions of anger. When anger, the emotion isn't. That's what this article's titled, and it's by Dave Decker. And it says, he lists a whole bunch of stuff here. This is really quite interesting. Being controlling, and sulking, pouting. This is distortions, right? Distortions and perversions of anger. Being blaming, scapegoating, lecturing, ranting and raving, labeling, preaching, therapizing, I guess, making grand interpretations about why other people do what they do. I guess that's me, I probably do a lot of that. Being sarcastic, being aggressive, being vicious, being punitive, being vindictive, and violent. So we'll go through those. This is what, these are distortions and perversions of anger, right? Being controlling. It says being demanding, expecting that others will do what you want, or telling others what they should do and how they should be. Being controlling. I don't think I'm controlling. I think I might have some issues with a control issue, but I don't think I'm necessarily an aggressive controller. I'm pretty happy to let people just do what they want to do, in their life. I don't sit there and I don't think I have to get involved in everything that everybody's doing. I actually kind of don't, and that I think some people feel like I'm not, almost that I don't care, because I'm not in there trying to, find out what they're doing and getting in their face and, oh, well, what are you doing? You should do this and you should do that. Some people might think I'm actually not interested in what they're doing, but actually that's not the case. I don't like to control what people are doing, so I usually support. If I like what they're doing, I'll support them, and but otherwise I don't dig and pry as far as what they're doing, because as long as they're happy, well, that's cool with me. Because I like people just to let me do my thing, right? I don't like people trying to control me, so so I don't think I'm controlling in that aspect. I do think I try to control feelings and people's feelings, and I think that's just because I think it's just from that wounding, being so wounded as a child. You want people to see things a certain way, especially to see people to see things your way. Especially as a survivor, it's very important that we have validation and for the abuse that we suffered. And I'm talking as a survivor here, right? Almost all of my stuff is all about survivors' issues and child abuse, right? And so, it's like when no one wants to validate the abuse or care that you were abused and you're within your own family, which is what's going on with me. But it's almost like, how could I expect them to care, right? That was my thoughts this morning, actually, was that why am I even expecting my dysfunctional family to care? Like, why would they care? They never cared before, so what would make them change their mind that they should care now, right? So, I'm running through this stuff all the time. I'm still very much on my healing journey, right? Excuse me, and it's a long process. It takes time to work all this stuff out. But the fact of the matter is I have a whole lot of friends who care. And so those guys, that's the people I concentrate on and spend most of my time thinking about and sort of allowing their care and their love to sort of take the place of where my family cannot be there for me, right? And the reason my family won't be there is because they're in denial. So, I can't control how they feel. I can't control how they perceive our childhood, the people that are still living that know about it, which there isn't that many of us left. And so basically there's not much I can do with that. We can't control everything. And so we have to kind of just allow ourselves really to heal and not worry so much about what other people are doing, because we really can't control what others are doing, and really just control what we're doing. And, by our own actions and our own behaviors and our own feelings, right? That's about the only thing that we can control. And we can control the positive outcomes, really, that come from that. Because if we stay positive and we still have to work through the negative stuff, which is what I'm doing, working through all these survivor issues, right? It's no good to stuff it down and just be positive all the time, right? Because then we're not dealing with what we need to deal with. But in the meantime, we can remember that to try to keep some positive thoughts in there as well. Try to think about what we can do instead of what we can't do. Look at some of the positives instead of just always looking at the negatives, right? So I think it's very important, and realize that we can only control really what we do. I can't control what my family will do or anybody else will do. It's basically up to them. But I can control how I behave, and I can control how I feel, right? Because I can change the way that I feel, which I did. I changed the way that I felt 4 years ago when I decided to fight to live instead of to fight to die, right? And I had always been trying to think of ways that I could sort of get away with ending my life without being too dramatic, right? And actually, what I was doing was thinking of ways I could disappear and do that without hurting anybody because they wouldn't know where I went, sort of thing. So I was always kind of considering what I could do to end my life, right? And I had some great ideas. And the sad thing is that that's how pathetic it is. I mean, I was literally in hell and just did not want to be here. And but my family was like that, and one of my brothers killed himself at the age of 33, and he just didn't want to be here. He didn't try one time and make it. He actually tried, numerous times, at least 3 that we know of, and he finally made it. So that's the thing. He didn't want to be here, and he tried to kill himself, and it just wouldn't work. He could get saved every time, and then finally the last time he made it. So I was always keeping that in the back of my mind that I could eventually do that too. And that's so sad, because now I'm looking back on that 4 years later thinking, thank God, I'm so thankful that I did not do that, because I would not have been able to ever experience what I'm experiencing right now, which is a sense of peace in my heart and a sense of knowing that what happened to me was wrong and what happened to my family was extremely wrong, and a sense of standing up for other survivors, and also standing up to say, hey, we need to stop child abuse. So I'm really glad that I made the decision to stay and fight to live, and I hope that you will too if you're experiencing this, because I'm on the other end of it now, looking back thinking, thank God, I'm so thankful that I didn't do that. So we can't control what others will do, but we can certainly control what we're doing, right? And that's the big issue, and we need to not worry. I have to kind of stop worrying about what other people are thinking or doing, and just be concerned with what I'm doing, right? Sulking, pouting is another distortion and perversion of anger. Trying to hurt others with a silence that is punishing, hostile, ominous, and threatening. Emotionally withdrawing from your partner, refusing to talk for long periods of time when you're angry, giving your partner the cold shoulder or the silent treatment, and or someone in your family. I'm famous for that. And I think what it is because I saw so much violence in my life with my parents, the way they acted towards each other. They wouldn't sulk and pout and not talk to each other. They were physically and verbally vicious towards each other and highly abusive people. So, they didn't sulk and pout and not talk. Well, my mom sometimes would do that. She was manic depressive, so she would do that to us. She wouldn't talk to us for a few days or whatever. We'd get the cold shoulder or the silent treatment, right? And but not towards her husband, my dad. Like they were very much physically and emotionally abusive towards each other, so, and verbally. But I kind of took that on because I thought, well, this is the best way I can think of to get my way, which would be instead of hurting people physically or abusing them physically or verbally, I just shut down and not talk to them. So I would use that as a tool, and it's something that people do, and it doesn't really get anybody anywhere because you still have to talk out the issues in the end. And I'm actually doing that right now because I'm not quite sure how to handle this whole thing with my family because I'm separating from them, you know what I mean? And so it's a hard place to be in, I'm no longer going to play that codependent game with them, and I'm on my healing journey. They're not with me on my healing journey, so my immediate family, right? And so it has put a wedge in between us, and so I'm not necessarily sulking and pouting. It's the whole silent treatment thing, But I figure that's better than yelling and screaming and getting all violent, right? My sister and I have a strange relationship where we get along, and then when we do argue and fight, it gets very vicious and not physically, but very verbally and emotionally crazy. So I can't deal with that right now, So it's just a silent treatment for everybody that in my dysfunctional family that's still living. I just feel like I need a time out from them, and sometimes they say, I guess that's the best thing to do. If you can't quite get a hold of your feelings and you know it's going to turn angry and ugly, it's better to walk away for a while and take a breather, take a time out. And that's what I'm doing. I'm taking a time out, and if it takes me 6 months, it takes me 6 months. If it takes me a year, it takes me a year. You know, my family has time to out on me before, so I don't know why they would expect that I wouldn't do that to them. Probably because I'm the youngest and they just still think they can push me around, see. But I'm 45 years old. I mean, come on, give me a break. Like, I don't have to talk to them if I don't want to. But this is the whole issue. My abuser family is still trying to run my life. And I just don't want any more of it. You know what I mean? I'm on my own and I'm doing my own thing, and I have been for years. And they're still trying to get their digs in, get their claws in, and I'm like, you know, go away. And they use this whole thing. Well, we love you. Well, if you love me, you'd be here for me right now. You know, I told my sister last December that I was molested by my older brother, not the oldest brother, but my older brother, sexually molested as a child, and she has not said anything to me about it. It's been almost a year. She's totally just living in denial. She didn't say one word, and she actually, I think, tuned it out and pretended that she didn't hear it so that she wouldn't have to deal with it. And so it seems to me like if a person told their other sibling that they had been molested as a child and how painful it was, and that nobody did anything to help them, the other sibling would be like, what? You know what I mean? Oh, my God. And they would want to be as much a support as they could be for that person, you know, for their other sister or brother. And to me, you know, that's what a normal person would do, a normal sister or brother would do. They would rally around and they would try to talk with you about it, maybe if you wanted to, and see if they could help you, right? But she's totally blown it off, and all she wants to talk about is going shopping or getting some new clothes or something like this. That it just doesn't matter to me. I don't, you know, it's like I made a statement to her that she should have been there to support me, and she wasn't. See, so I'm actually just tuning her out right now. Right, she tuned me out, and I disclosed to her one of the most horrific secrets that I have been holding my whole life, really, except for the friends. You know, that happened to me as a child when I was 8 years old, and she's just ignoring me. She doesn't want to know. She doesn't want to hear about it, and that's not being a good support system, right? And they expect me to be there for them. So this is the whole issue. I'm going through this right now, all of this stuff right now. And it's very, very hard. You bet it is. I needed that support, you know, and I'm getting more support from my friends than I am from my family. But see, that's what I was saying. My family's so dysfunctional. Why would I expect that it would change? She was really never there for me that way, ever, right? She was, if you want to read my book, I have a book. It used to be a blog. It was called Not So Fond Memories Growing Up in an Abusive Home. And Donna Shear and Sandra Potter from Dreamcatchers for Abused Children saw it, and they said it should be a book. And so they published it, A Life of Death, The Redemption. And that's my story. And, you know, I explained a lot in there about how my family, we all did not come together to support each other. We all basically were enemies, you know. We were always at each other's throats. My sister was not there for me. She was 5 years older. She would witness the abuse and not try to help me. I think it's because she didn't want to be abused herself, right? So she didn't want to get in the middle of it and have my mom attack her too. So I think she just sat in the sidelines, and she also thought that she was beyond it. She was, I think she, you know, in the back of her mind, she felt like she was the good kid, and she was the one who, like, I deserved what I got, and she didn't. Like, so I think, you know, my whole family kind of made it look like the abuse was my fault. Right, my whole family has done that to me my whole life, and no, there's no excuse for somebody to bash your head in with a rolling pin or slap you so hard that your nose bleeds and things like this, right? And beat you with belts out in the front yard and stuff. Right? I mean, and she's witnessed it all, so it's not like she didn't see it. So the thing is, you know, she's never been there for me, so I don't know why she would be there for me now. She's only been there in a very sort of a non-supportive way. She's there for me if I want to go shopping, but she's not there for me if I need to talk about the fact that I was molested as a child. So this is the thing. It's very, very sad, and I guess she just can't handle it, so I guess that's not her fault. So being blaming, this is not taking responsibility for yourself. For example, your thoughts, feelings, continually focusing on others and what they say and do to justify what you have said and done. And so in other words, saying, I would never have said that to you if you wouldn't have put me down first. So being blaming, not taking responsibility for yourself, your thoughts, feelings, focusing on what others say and do to justify what you have said and done. And I grew up with that. My parents were always like that. Well, if you wouldn't do this, I wouldn't. And my mom was always, well, if you weren't misbehaving all the time, I wouldn't have to beat you. And my mom was famous for beating people. Like, she was not just me, but other people in the family. Right? She was always beating up on somebody. And it was always, well, if they weren't behaving this way, I wouldn't have to do this, right? And or verbally cursing somebody, right? She'd be saying, well, I wouldn't have to say these things if you weren't such a bad kid, or to my dad, if you weren't such a bad husband or whatever, right? So this whole being blaming thing, and I'm sure I've done it too, because I learned how to do it from the best people, like the most abusive people in my life, right? That really showed me how to misbehave, and then treated me really badly for it. So that's the thing, right? We have to be responsible for what we say. We have to be responsible for what we do. It is our responsibility, and we don't want to be abusers. That's the whole issue. So we have to be very careful what we're saying and doing, and that's why I'm taking a time out really from my family, because I don't want to say things that are. I'm tired of saying things hurtful to them, and arguing and fighting and stuff like that. We did that for so many years. If we can't talk decently and normally, then there's no sense in being together. And this whole thing, of people not taking responsibility, my whole family's famous for that. They don't want to take responsibility for their actions. My mom and dad didn't want to take any responsibility for the abuse that they put on us, whether it was verbal or physical. My dad has apologized. I will let everybody know that. I think I've mentioned that before on my shows. Like, my dad has apologized. He did, actually many times. Now, he doesn't really acknowledge how much damage he actually did to his family. He acts like that was just not that big of a deal. But he has apologized for his behavior, whereas my mom never apologized for her behavior because she felt really justified in being able to behave that way because she was blaming my dad. It was all his fault. It was all somebody else's fault. See, so she was never taking responsibility for her own actions, and so my family's much like that. My sister is like that, and she won't take a good hard look at herself. She'll take a good hard look at everybody else, but then she won't take a hard look at herself and see what she's doing that hurts other people. And so, in other words, everybody else is responsible for hurting people except for her because she's perfect, right? And it's like, right, okay. We all have to be responsible for what we do, because what we do and say can really hurt people. And I've been probably the number one, bad example for that. I've been, because I was trained how to do it by my parents, right? So I know how to hurt people, and, I have hurt people in the past, and that's what I say. I'd like to be forgiven too. I'd like to be trusted too. So I have to learn how to forgive, and I have to learn how to trust, right? And then I need to be responsible for what I say and do. So now I'm trying to be very cautious about how I handle things and really look, because I know what triggers me and I know what gets me going, so I have to be very careful at those points not to hurt people. And that's what this whole anger management thing is all about, right? Here's another distorted form of anger is scapegoating, dumping your anger on others who don't deserve your anger, but who are safer and easier targets than the original person would be. So yelling at your partner or children rather than speaking up directly about your concerns at work with your boss or something. That's an example that they give. That's kind of interesting, scapegoating. That's what my mom did. I mean, we were scapegoats. My mom was really mad at my dad, and she was angry at him because he was always raping her, because she was forcing her to have sex, right? She was not supposed to have any more children, and she was not on any kind of birth control, and her life depended on it. So my dad was so always trying to just use her, right? So, he didn't love her, right? He absolutely did not love her. He was just using her. And so, she was, and he didn't care about her health either. He didn't care if she died or whatever, because it didn't matter to him. She was not supposed to have any children after my brother was born. And she had 4 more pregnancies, and only 2 of us made it. Actually, 5 more pregnancies. 5 more pregnancies, and 2 of us made it. So 3 were stillborn. So that just tells you, the man was just continually trying to rape her, and I actually witnessed it. And the sad thing is that, my mom would be yelling for help, and of course my brothers, when they were in the home, my older brothers, when they were still living at home, would always try to help her out and try to keep her safe, and try to kind of keep my dad away from her. Because my parents didn't share a room, right? They didn't share a bedroom for years and years, right? Now, from the time I was born, they never shared a bedroom. My mom slept on the couch in the living room. And so sometimes my brothers would sort of try to stand watch around her. Actually, at certain times they'd have to, because my dad would become so violent and obsessed, because he was kind of, he's mentally ill, right? So, but if, excuse me, if they weren't home, then that's what would happen. He would force himself on her and force her to have sex, right? And so it was a horrible thing, and it went on for years and years and years. And that's why we kept telling my mom to leave. We were like, just leave him, you know what I mean? Like, but she would never leave him, so stupid. But anyway, so the whole thing is she was so angry at him that she took her anger out on us. And she literally turned her rage on us because it was really the only way she could think of. It was a safe way to get her anger out. So instead of, targeting my dad, she would target us, right? And mainly me, because I was the last one at home, and so I was quite often home, right, when I was little. So I took a lot of abuse just because she was mad, right? She was just needed to punch somebody, so she, needed to beat on somebody, and instead couldn't get a hold of my dad, so I was it, right? So this is the thing, scapegoating, bad news, and the people don't deserve it, that's for sure. We need to take care of our anger in a different way, so we don't hurt the people around us just because we're hurting, right? Or just because we're mad or angry at somebody else for doing something to us. We're going to, we need to watch out so we don't take our anger out on our family or, somebody who doesn't deserve it. Lecturing is another one, going on and on, talking at someone to try to make a point or convince them that you are right and they are wrong. I'm probably famous for that because I like communication and I like to talk, but I also like to listen. So I don't, I'm not necessarily, I don't think I'm on the farthest end of this, right? But I think I'm somewhere in the middle probably, trying to make a point or convince them. But that's because I grew up with psychologically ill people who were, you had to kind of work at it all the time to sort of make them see that you did deserve to live and this kind of stuff. Like, this is how serious this stuff is. I mean, I'm talking about, this is abuse-related stuff that I'm talking about. But anybody can be in this situation, right, where they're always trying to make somebody see that they're right and the other person's wrong. And, I mean, we can all do that if we wanted to, right? And I think at some point we do have to listen. And we do have to allow other people to say their points of view, right, and not just be pushing our stuff on people all the time. And I have to be very careful about that. Ranting and raving is another one, going on and on about some topic or issue that bothers you, whether the other person wants to hear about it or not. For example, about the taxes you pay, a disliked neighbor or in-law, local or national politics or political figures, how the government is run, a micromanaging boss or lazy coworker. Ranting and raving, that's something I grew up with. My parents were ranting and raving all the time about everything. So my dad is especially a good ranter. He likes to rant and rave. My brothers were like that. Everybody in my family was like that, and I think it's because we all kind of suffer from some mental illness, And there's this whole, schizo thing going on. Excuse me, my voice is just terrible these days, but I think it's just because I'm overtired. Hopefully I can get some rest over the weekend. But ranting and raving, that's, I used to be like that. And I used to really be like that. I'm talking, I would rant and rave about everything. And, the people around me were also ranting and raving, so it didn't really matter. But when you're around somebody who doesn't rant and rave and they're just kind of calm and just your average person, it is a bit much. So I try not to do that. Labeling is another one, making simplistic and critical judgments about others, like, what an idiot, you're a moron, you need to grow up and you're nuts, that type of thing. Labeling people, I actually really try hard not to do that because that's really bad, just judging people all the time critically. And I don't like to be treated like that, so I try to not label people. Preaching is another one, moralizing and making right-wrong assessments about others and what they say and do. No one should ever act like that. That's me. I'm always preaching that. But that's because it's true. It's so true, you know what I mean? And I think it's just that if you really trying to get help with certain issues and certain things and try to change your mind about certain things, you almost have to do that, right, to find where boundaries are and to find out what is truth and what is right. You know what I mean? So we'll have to finish this up again tomorrow. There's still quite a bit left there, and or you can go there, www.angerresources.com, ANGERESOURCES.com, and check the rest of this out for yourself. It's really quite good. There's lots left there, and have a great day, everybody, and a great weekend. We'll talk to you soon. I've got some shows on the weekend. I'm going to schedule another special show for Sunday, talking about the WHO's World Mental Health Day again, because we want to finish that up. And yeah, if you need something, get a hold of me on Blog Talk Radio, Facebook. Take care of yourself. Keep reaching out. Make sure you get some help, even if it's, call a crisis line if you have to. Call or get involved in a group online support, because you can do that anonymously if you don't want to give your name and whatnot. And just make sure you get some help, right? And keep looking for that hope and that help, right? It's so important. You do count. You do matter, and to me. And so take care of yourselves, everybody. We'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.